cause I'm a boss.
Welcome back to another episode of Single Mom Sucks. Today we're diving into something that touches every single family, final expenses, and what to do on the worst day of your life. Today we're going to be talking about Globe Life's Freedom of Choice Certificate, the cash value life insurance, and what a prepared funeral actually looks like versus a prepaid funeral, because they are different.
Right. So this isn't a light talk that we're talking about. But it is really, really important. And planning ahead saves you so much time, money, stress. Your family doesn't have to argue with any attorneys or lawyers. Like, everything's already set and done.
And we're going to break it all down, okay? What the freedom of choice is, how the cash value works, and why it's better to handle your funeral expenses and plans now and early before your loved ones actually are in that situation, are grieving, are hurting, and how you can take advantage of planning ahead.
Especially in our Latino communities where we don't like to talk about these kind of conversations because it's very taboo. And they say if you talk about it, it's going to bring you to death, right? And but we're going to have those conversations today because they matter, and we're going to have them today.
Absolutely, Myra. I mean, today we're going to touch on what the freedom of choice actually does for you and your family, and what a prepaid funeral actually looks like for you and your family. And to sum it up for you as quickly as I can, it would be the freedom of choice is there for you on the worst day of your life so that you're not dealing with the financial burden. You're just grieving and just making sure that everything is going exactly how your loved one planned for their funeral to go. And you just use that certificate. It takes care of everything up front. As soon as you get the death certificate, you turn that in, and then your family is taken care of with any remaining money that's left over that you set up for them. With a prepaid funeral, you could be 2 months in and die. God did not give us an expiration date. So if you die and you're only 2 months in, your family still has to pay the remainder of that prepaid funeral. It's not paid in full. And to me, that is the difference of being prepared versus a prepaid funeral. Myra, what do you think on that?
Most families, they don't have thousands of dollars saved. So that means when you have the freedom of choice certificate or when you have a prepaid funeral, they're able to take care of those expenses up front. Most people don't have that money in the savings account. And if they do have it in the savings account, it's not being used for a funeral. So just like you said, the certificate goes directly to the funeral home and they handle the rest. Usually with other insurance company, with most insurance company, you have to wait for a death certificate before the insurance policy pays out. So instead of waiting 3 to 5 months to wait for that insurance policy to pay, you can use the freedom of choice certificate to cover any of the gaps and get paid right away, and pays the funeral right away.
Well, this is exactly why all of our customers have us as insurance. It's because of the certificate and how it makes everything so easy. There's already going to be high stress levels when somebody passes, but the one thing that people don't have to worry about is going to be when the funeral is going to be paid, how it's going to be paid, and who's paying it, So it really lessens so much stress.
Right, Anna, exactly. And instead of having to deal with all that chaos, they can actually deal with their grief. And the thing about the freedom of choice certificate is that the family doesn't have to make these decisions alone. You can actually decide now how you want to handle things, have things prepared and ready to go. And that way your family can actually it'd be very easy for them. And during the worst time of their life, they can actually just have everything handled and taken care of by our company through the freedom of choice certificate. And it's also a protection for them. In this way, they're not trying to make big decisions or serious decisions at one of the most emotional times in their lives. So this is the most critical benefit that we have, and it just secures that your families will get an immediate payout.
I Couldn't agree more, Chrissy. And that's really what we're here to talk about today is what is the freedom of choice and how is it funded? It is funded through a whole life policy that builds cash value over time. You can borrow against it. It's like a savings account. The policy still protects your family when you pass, even if you borrow from it. But, there are some rules and regulations on that. And you do need to fully understand and make sure you're educated, by your agent on how that works. Anna, what are your thoughts on whole life insurance?
Whole life with this freedom of choice certificate that we do have, I think it's probably the most beneficial to a lot of, or almost all of our younger, in their 30s, late 20s, especially clients, because that's where you're not really thinking about anything happening to you. It's kind of on the back burner, but you still are building that cash value and you're not even thinking about it, and then if something does happen, anything life-changing, like you said, you can borrow against it, and it's almost like free money, honestly. So that's why I like the whole life policies. It becomes more of not just the life insurance, but it becomes actually a financial tool. So say you're buying your first house and you need a little extra funds, you might have it in your whole life policy. That's what I like about it the most.
I agree, Anna. Whole life insurance, it is one of the most important things that you can have in place for your family. I've got clients that's taken out loans for emergencies to purchase a house, car repairs, medical calls, and using their policy's cash value to do so. I even have clients that are paying like $1,500 a month because they want a specific amount when they retire that in cash value that they don't have because they're, entrepreneurs and they don't have a 401k. So they're using their guaranteed cash value to grow and not taking their risk on IULs. And that's a whole nother podcast, ladies. But just to touch on that, you can use this for anything and it's tax free and it's guaranteed to grow.
Exactly, Jamie. And that's why it's so important to do this and start this when you're young. And it's really hard to get some of these young folks that we sit down with on a day-to-day basis to see how serious it is now, because a lot of them are like, oh, I don't care what happens to me when I die, I won't be here. But when you make them really understand that this could be a financial tool and they can utilize this as a financial tool, as an investment, as a savings, that the earlier you start it, the more value it builds and the more value it will have in the long run. And number one, point blank, just like you brought up UILs or a different topic, you won't lose it. It will be there for you. It can be there as a loan. It can be there when you retire. And then no matter what, one day we are, unfortunately, not a lot of people want to talk about death, but we all at some point are going to pass on. And why not have the financial, why not make the financial decision to have something for an investment that if you were in dire straits, you could take from, or it's just there for your family when you may, pass on.
And this policy that we offer, I've had a couple clients that have borrowed against it. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm insured because I have insurance to do my job. 70% of America is underinsured because they think they have life insurance, but you really don't. Because when you leave your job, you lose it. So our policies, you can borrow against them. So I actually had one of my clients when her mom passed, and then I had another one that they had cancer and they needed funds right away. They called the company and I told them how they can borrow against it. Now, you do have to pay the interest on it. You don't have to pay that money back, but there is a small interest fee, but then you can put it back in. So, we'd like to take care of our families, right? In all the households, we'd like to take care of the families. So this is one way for us to take care of our families and for you to help yourself.
Absolutely, Mara. Couldn't agree more. It is so important. That is my number one goal and why I pay for my life insurance before I pay for anything else, because I want to take care of my daughters. That's all I care about is generational wealth. And again, that's a whole nother topic. But, some people say that, well, I prepared for my funeral, so I'm covered. They made a prepaid funeral. They set it up 6 months ago. But what if you die before that prepaid funeral is paid off? What's going to happen if your family can't cover that remaining balance? The freedom of choice makes sure that your family is not pulling out their credit card. They're not stressed on how they're going to come up with that money, or, having to swipe 5 different family members' credit cards, or doing a fish fry or a GoFundMe to make sure that your family can cover the remainder balance. It's better to be prepared and not to be prepaying for something when you don't know your own expiration date. And it's not that the funeral home's bad people, it's just that they're a business, and life insurance is a one insurance that's not a what if. You have car insurance if you get in a car wreck. You have phone insurance if you break your phone. Life insurance is when you die, this will pay out to your family. Make sure you set your policy up properly. And the freedom of choice, you can't go wrong. Christy, what do you think about that?
Right, Jamie. Exactly. The prepaid's only going to go so far. And so many people that I sit down with, I know you guys sit down with, they say, I have mine all paid up. And then I've even had clients come back and say, oh, my mom had everything paid up, but we still had this transportation cost and this cost and flowers and all kinds of other things that they didn't even think about. They're just thinking, oh, the plot's paid for, the casket's paid for. They don't think about all those additional costs that arise, that come up. They just, they assume everything's taken care of. And then when that day comes, there's so many more little things that add up and add up. And what if you pass away in a different location than your prepaid is taken care of? There's so many more costs that come up with that. Whole life gives you the ultimate options that the family will have that's immediate. And you'll have the cash in hand in order to take care of all your needs at the time that it happens. And I mean, this is one of those unexpected things that life does not always go as planned, and you might as well have everything set up and planned. And the thing about it is you're not going to lose it, because, everybody eventually is going to have to use it, but you can also have other options to use it. And then it's there, like you said, Jamie, when you need it, because you're going to need it. You could have car insurance your whole life and never get in an accident, but it's required by law to have it. Life insurance is not required to have, but everyone's going to eventually pass on. So it's just really like thinking on the perspective. And then once you get a family bought in on it, they can also help you to help educate the younger ones. So sometimes it's challenging to get the younger ones, the 20s, the 30s, invested in their life insurance and why it's so important. But once you get the family bought in, you can definitely start educating them on how important these whole life options are, because it stays with you the entire duration of your life. It will never expire. Your rate won't increase. So that's what's most critical. What do you think, Anna?
It's like the cash value life insurance means that your family isn't locked into one path. They've already prepaid for a piece, but the whole life policy guarantees that piece, And so you never really know how you're going to go. You don't know if there's going to be credit card bills, medical bills that go along with it, travel expenses. My own father, he has his prepaid, but he's prepaid in New York. We're in Texas. So how's the travel going to go? Nobody knows. That's something that I yet have to talk to him about, because there's the little nuances that people don't think about when they're prepaying for their funeral.
And, I had a client, Anna, now that you're talking about that, where her family, it happened during Harvey, and her mom died during the Harvey, and she was prepaying her funeral. And what happened is that she didn't finish paying for it. So a lot of people say, oh, I'm paying into my prepaid, right? When she died, the family, you have to come up with all the money up front if you didn't finish paying for it. So the family had found another funeral home that was cheaper. So what happened? Do you think you're going to get the money back from what you prepaid? No, you lose that. So that's why it's good to have that freedom of choice certificate. Another thing is that we were talking about the whole life policies and how the freedom of choice certificate works. A lot of the times it's that when you have other policies, the money doesn't get paid right away, right? So what happens that, like Jamie said earlier, do you have to do a fish fry? How are you going to come up with the money? You're going to go into your savings, right? Or, I have a 401k plan, right? A lot of people say, I have that. I have houses, I have properties. Well, it's going to take a while for you to have access to that money. So do you know that the funeral homes charge you to have the body in the freezer between $35 to $100 to $200 a day. Yeah. So a lot of time people don't people don't know about that, but especially in the Latino community, with us, we always say, I already have my plot. I think you said something about that, Chrissy, but the plot doesn't include everything. So having both a prepaid funeral and a freedom of choice is how you make sure that everything is taken care of, because we're not trying to replace anything. If you have it, that's great, but the freedom of choice certificate is only used to cover those gaps while you're waiting, or maybe sometimes you don't even need to use the freedom of choice certificate to pay for the funeral if you already have it all taken care of, because there are some that do, right? Maybe you can use that to feed your family, right? Or flowers, or pay your bills for a couple of months, okay? So we want to make sure that everyone's taken care of and no one's holding the bag.
The great thing about the freedom of choice is that even if it's suicide after 2 years, it's no longer contestable. It's a guaranteed death benefit, a guaranteed payout when your family needs it. You know, ladies, I've helped families in crisis. I've helped families with a plan. And let me tell you, the difference is night and day. Funeral homes can and sometimes do, and I can tell you from personal experiences, that they take advantage of families in emotional distress. When my mom tragically died in a car wreck, it was so unexpected, and we were in emotional distress. We didn't know what we were going to do. She didn't have any life insurance. We had to come up with almost $16,000 to pay for her funeral. And I tell you what, when my dad died almost 10 years later, his funeral was $3,000 less. And that's with inflation, right? So can you tell me we were definitely taking advantage of? And that's what they do. They're a business, you know? When there's no plan in place, families are vulnerable to upselling, hidden costs. But when you have the freedom of choice certificate in place, you already set the terms and you're protected. Chrissy, what are your thoughts on this?
I have to agree with you, Jamie. When we avoid talking about death, but death is going to be an absolute. It's going to happen. And, it really, talk to you, hear you talk about your losing your mother and losing your father. You've definitely been there before and have had the situations where you have been taken advantage of during a very, trying time. Death is going to befall us all. And it's one thing that we all have in common. And, it's important that we protect the ones that we love, even beyond our lives. So, it's important to me. And that's why I have the freedom of choice. Me and all my children, I've encouraged every one of my family members to have the freedom of choice as well, to not only protect themselves and their families, but so that when they are gone, their families aren't taken advantage of, and they're not paying outrageous amounts, and, it's just really important to protect the ones we love right now when we can.
Oh, yeah. It makes the grieving process so much easier.
It sure does. And it lets you just focus on your time with your family and grieving with your family instead of having to worry about how we're going to do this and how we're going to do that.
Yeah, we really do need to normalize talking about this and normalize preparing for it as well. They took a 2023 survey by the Funeral Consumers Alliance and found out that about 1 in 5 families were reported that they had been paying for more services than they even wanted. It sounds very similar to you, Jamie. Like, it was night and day between your mom and your dad's funeral. But if we're thinking about it in a business sense, can you really blame them? They have one shot to make their money. They don't get multiple chances, but it seems so unfair for us because they are taking advantage of us grieving instead of helping us through it, So because we have this freedom of choice certificate, it really does protect, everybody involved.
So in my culture, we rally together, right? When we need something, we all come together. And so when somebody dies, it's customary that we all do cooperachas, where everybody pitches in, right? But one time we had 3 deaths within a week. And sometimes we don't have the money to give you, okay? And sometimes when somebody dies, it's not always in the best moments when somebody dies. But this is how we protect our parents, our siblings, our children with dignity. And in fact, many Hispanic families face a unique challenge with dealing with death, especially with language barriers, because they might take advantage of you because you don't speak the language. Lack of access to financial planning or unfamiliar, they're unfamiliar with the with the funeral process here in the United States. This is very different in the U.S. versus like in Mexico and South America, right? And according to reports by the National Funeral Directors Associations, Latino families are less likely to have prearranged funeral plans or life insurance here in the U.S., which leaves them especially vulnerable in times of loss.
What is the freedom of choice? What the freedom of choice is it's this certificate that on the worst day of your life, your family is going to take into the funeral home. All you're going to do is negotiate the best deal possible, sign it, date it. The director's then going to scan it into us and give us a call. We're going to take care of all the expenses up front. And then as soon as you send in the death certificate, your family will receive the remainder of the money. And that's what the freedom of choice is. It gives your family the ability to negotiate the best price possible, never revealing the face value of the policy. So if you only are working with $15,000, they're not going to know. If you're working with $150,000, they're not going to know. If you have $1 million in coverage, they're not going to know. Your family is safe from being taken advantage of and able to negotiate the best deal possible. Not worried about the price tag, worried about what is it that your loved one wanted. Are we fulfilling their wishes and getting the best deal possible? Because you know your family, your loved one would want you to negotiate the best deal possible. Do not let them take advantage of you. And that is your final thank you to them, is being level-headed with the freedom of choice, because they were prepared and they put this in place for you so that you could negotiate and not stress.
And having this freedom of choice certificate, it's going to protect all of your loved ones from being exploited. And it's going to help them be able to focus on what's most important at that time.
Well, we help you explain it. And if you need help planning your funeral and final expenses, if you have questions, we speak it. We'll explain it in plain language, English or Spanish, so your family is truly protected.
Absolutely. If this episode hit home with you even just a little bit, hit the like and share button. And also go check us out at singlemoms.com, singlemomsales.com. Pick your favorite agent that you want to work with and let us help you get your family protected today so that on the worst day of your loved one's life, they're not stressed. They're prepared.
Go ahead and comment the word choice on our socials or DM us directly, and we'll walk you through how this policy works and what it looks like for your budget.
Because peace of mind is priceless. You and your family, you all deserve that.
Go ahead and subscribe to our channel down below. Like, share, and comment. What was your favorite part of the freedom of choice?
Okay, so DM, subscribe if this resonates with you. Please like or share our channel. Okay, I want to hear one of your stories. I want to hear the reasons. One of your stories. What is the reason why you haven't bought life insurance, right? What is some of the reasons why you haven't bought? Yo quiero escuchar una de las razones por qué usted no ha comprado aseguranza. Porque muchas personas no compran porque dice, porque trae la muerte. Yo quiero saber qué son otras razones por qué usted no ha protegido a su familia. Por favor, comente de abajo. Now, I want to hear the taboo stories as to why people haven't bought life insurance.
Me too.
If you really want to know what the freedom of choice really means, comment below, subscribe to our channel, and keep watching.
Comment below FOC, and we'll tell you exactly what the freedom of choice means. Anna, what do you have to say?
This segment really touched you. Comment #generational wealth for the agent that you want to work with to help you bring that generational wealth to life.
I totally understand what you're trying to say, Anna. What she means is, if this really resonated with you today, #generational wealth, and next to it, comment your favorite agent, whether it's Anna, Chrissy, or myself, or Myra, and we'll help you create generational wealth for your family today.
Y si necesita alguien que hable español, ponga español, #español.
#SingleMomSells, Moms Rule.
Go ahead and give this video a like. It really helps us out a lot.
I'm a boss, I'm a leader. I pull up in my two-seater, and my mama was a savage. Nigga got this shit from Tina. I'm a savage, yeah. Classy,